Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and tonight we have a video courtesy of War Daddy in the Giulio Cesare, and from here on forth I will refer to it as the Julio, because reasons. Anyways, this ship is definitely a favorite of pretty much everybody I know who has it. At tier 5, it can just take the game over, and that's what this game is, mostly 5s and 4s. And War Daddy is going to do just that throughout this game. It's interesting to see a standard battle. I always find the standard battles lack a bit of direction. The plus side, you're not going to get capped out in the first 5 minutes because none of your teammates sailed into any caps or contested them. But without the caps there to kind of entice players to move forward, you can end up with a battle that just drags on forever with both teams sitting behind their own caps. When that happens, it is frustrating. Now, there's also 2 CVs, a bit of a threat for Julio, but he can hold his own. It's not like it's a Nikolai, or even worse, an Arkansas Beta with no AA. Now, for some people who I know have this ship, they find it hard to get citadels. And in general, I've had this discussion with a few people now, and part of it comes down to just the shell velocity. At these low tiers, some of these light cruisers, like the Omaha, pretty much all the cruisers down here, they have so little armor, the shells just don't activate. So you just get overpen after overpen. You're better off when the enemy target is angled in a little, or your shells are plunging down so they have more of the ship to kind of fall through to activate them. But you see a good example there. 2 shells hitting, the one that does actually kind of connect and not ricochet, overpens. And, well, that's a bit of a weakness against cruisers. I mean, it's great when they turn bow in, because it pretty much just means you'll overmatch the bow and do damage. But the Giulio works its ass off against battleships. These guns just wreck enemy BBs, and it doesn't matter what tier they are. I've been in tier 7 matches in this, tier 6, and you can just lay the damage down against pretty much any battleship you see. Now, the Omaha there does eat 2 citadels. The shells plunging a bit, connecting in the perfect spot, and some big damage on. And, well, here's some enemy planes, and even tier 4 planes completely surrounded, all in at like 2 kilometers. You can see how few War Daddy is managing to shoot down. Now, pretty much consigned to the fact that if these torp drum bombers go for a drop on him, they're going to get there. He decides instead to focus in, firing at the Omaha. Most of the shells overpens, one actually becoming a penetrating hit, leaving him on 319 health. And that always sucks. In a game where you kind of really want to get kills, particularly if you're concerned with your stats, it can be rough to leave ships on next to no health. It also just means another volley has to be expended trying to get them, and you can see now 3 or 4 volleys have gone at that Omaha from allied ships. No damage. War Daddy isn't concerned with the kills. He knows he's better off shooting some big targets, and there you go. 5 penetrating hits on a Wyoming, 15k, and that is what Julio does so well. It just dumpsters on every single BB you can find. Now, these guns sometimes seem to disperse a little more, but that kind of comes with the territory of the lower tiers. I mean, you look at what makes, say, a tier 3 battleship so ineffective, it's the accuracy. It's not that the guns don't work, it's that 90% of the time they just seem to scatter. But so far, the gun's behaving very well for War Daddy. Another heavy hit on the Wyoming, and finally, someone finishes that Omaha. We've been sailing around, continuing to close the fleet for quite some time. And people, I can only assume, continuously were shooting at him. No one could just land that killing hit. Meanwhile, War Daddy put another 30k on the board, shooting at targets that were more suited for his guns. Now, the Phoenix gets away a bit there, 1 pen, not a lot of damage, and you can see War Daddy just kind of pushing up, using the Julio's speed to just push the point. The ship has some decent armor, bow in, it can tank, and you can disengage, and a Qckslvrslash just sitting pretty much still. Slowly shift into reverse, but 7k, you'll take it. It's not what you want. Once again, mostly overpens, but that's what happens. But because they're battleship shells, each overpen's still good for like 1,000 damage. So do you really necessarily care? Probably. You definitely always want the Citadel over just an overpen, but you take what you get. He's up to 67,000 damage. Already, almost 500,000 damage has been shot at him, and he's barely taken a scratch. And that's mostly ships missing him, but some of it's just the armor standing up. Another big hit onto the Wyoming, and well, the rudder locked over, that island warning sounding. He's about to ground himself. And even if he does eke by, you've killed so much speed here that, you know, he's basically a sitting target, and he does the right thing. He slams the brakes on, and he's able to just tighten that turning radius just enough to get the bow over. And side effect, he may be stationary, but he's pretty much turned perfectly armored to everything that's shooting at him, most of which seems to be firing HE at this point. Now ideally, you'd like to fire at the Wyoming, you know, get a kill on the board, do some damage, and remove a ship, especially considering they're already down 4 ships to 2. The one shiny little positive in all that is the friendly Shenyang is in the enemy's cap. The downside with 2 carriers, he's liable to get spotted and that cap interrupted, and it looks like that's the case. Something's definitely in there with him, probably the enemy DD. The plus side of that, I suppose, is it's not over here with torps. And, well, it's time to remove ships. Qckslvrslash, first target, 1 Citadel, 2 overpens, it's enough. Next should be this Corvette. I have no idea if that's how you actually pronounce that. These French ships can be all over the map with pronunciations, it seems. And he's behind island, but momentarily, and then War Daddy's gonna have a shot, and you better believe he's gonna make it count. The Julioooo just has that ability to erase ships. It's basically the tier 5 Nikolai. 12,000 damage, no sweat, another kill, up to 2, 110k damage on the board, 1.5 million potential damage. War Daddy's basically been sailing around in front of his fleet, back and forth. Things have been focusing him, but they just can't seem to lay a huge mark of damage down like he isn't returning. And that's what I found sailing the Julioooo is you just trade some of your hit points, 1 or 2k against a battleship, if you're properly angled, for 12,000 of their own. A great hit there on that enemy Phoenix, erasing him from the game. Dev strike, high caliber, already achieved. And things are even now. The friendly Shenyang is dead, enemies still have a DD. You've got a carrier though, so you're not super worried about having a stealth ship on the map because the carrier should be able to run them down. Meanwhile, I've got a Kaiser here, Iron Duke, the Julioooo spotted. This is pretty much golden territory. 3 battleships, 2 of which on very high health. War Daddy's going to be able to lay some big damage down, gets the Confederate there. We're not even halfway through this battle, already starting to pick up the heroic achievements, and just using the maneuverability and speed to make sure, in this situation, really just making sure fewer ships have shots. You can see, you know, the Kaiser sailing out is starting to get shots, but War Daddy's trying to get behind the island, trying to put something between him and at least one of these ships, remove targets that have shots at you. And that's why he went and shot the Wyoming there. You get rid of the Wyoming, that's 1 fewer set of guns coming your way. Now unfortunately, he isn't able to kite behind the island in time, so he angles in, takes the hits he has to, and then he gets the rudder over. You gotta time it, there's planes behind him, he's gotta pay attention to that. 1 more volley at the Wyoming here, hopefully is going to be enough. You can see the planes just hovering as he finishes off one of the enemy BBs, and looking about, the planes definitely appear to be looking for a drop on War Daddy, Or are they? They actually go for the Qckslvrslash, which seems like a funny decision by that enemy CV. He picks up a torpedo hit, but with 2 friendly battleships there, they more than can deal with him. The CV would have probably landed far more of those torpedoes had he gone for the battleship, but I guess decided it wasn't worth it. And Wardaddy just keeps laying the smackdown. Battleships pretty much sitting in perfect spots, and it really looks like their attention keeps getting split back and forth. Almost like juggling, you know. Oh, someone shot me over here, and they draw their guns the other way to shoot the new target. And then, oh, someone shot me on the other side. The guns start shifting back, you know. Back when this game was early, the bots, you used to be able to juggle them. You could sit there and they'd never get their guns off in anything if you just timed your shots, because they were always trying to hit the target that last shot them. And players have that habit, you know. You shoot someone early in a game and land a big hit, they can just decide, that's the guy I've got to go for. He just hurt me, I'm going to hurt him back, and throw caution to the wind in really any sense of logic on a vendetta. Now the Iron Duke gets finished off by the friendly CV, and things are really starting to look secure for Wardaddy's team. The Julioooo, he's spotted. 1 shell penetrating for not a lot of damage. Unfortunately, the Julioooo kind of turned away right as Wardaddy fired, and the shells all ducking under his bow. And while Wardaddy, you know, probably wants to get damage here, I'd be looking at that Kaiser. You know, CV's going in on him. He's on full health. It's a ship you can do a lot of damage. As Julioooo sailing away, it's not the ideal target for a ship like the Julioooo. It just doesn't really have the armor. You know, when I'm in this ship, I'm looking for the targets with the most armor, because they're the ones that consistently you do big damage to, and you just win fights against. The Kaiser is still over there. He's getting shot by a couple ships. You can assume he's damage controlled, but, you know, Wardaddy wants the CV gone, so he's going to keep working it down. Unfortunately, aim a little off. Once again, just overled a bit. I think really expecting the Julioooo to be at full speed, and he's just not. He's kind of putting around at maybe half speed. Kind of consigned to his fate, I think. The New York up ahead is in range. Enemy Langley is somewhere up ahead there. There's some targets to shoot, and you can see finally Wardaddy's like, you know what? Screw the carrier. There's a battleship for me to shoot at. Brings his bow around, gets the full broadside ready to bring the full pain to the Italian Navy, and lets them fly. They're looking good. Good night, New York. There's the Kraken, and he is rapidly approaching 200,000 damage. Now is the perfect time to farm those carriers. Kraken's already secured. Confederate, high caliber. This game is in the bag. And, well, the Kaiser over there, he's getting focused down, and once again, Wardaddy going, well, I haven't had luck with the Julioooo. He's right in front of me. He can't run away. Let's shoot at the target. Unfortunately, the Omaha landing some torpedoes, finishing them off before the shells get there. But nonetheless, 2 more targets to farm, and maybe, just maybe, Wardaddy's going to be able to crack the 200k mark here. And if it were me, I'd probably go for the Langley, and Wardaddy agrees. The full health ship, don't go for the one on 10k that's closer to allies. This Langley pretty much sitting still, so Wardaddy just puts the guns on the bow, pulls the trigger. 1 Citadel, enough to bring him within reach of that 200k mark. And slowly Wardaddy's damage has piled up, but keeps running the repair parties and just keeps the Julioooo in the fight. And, you know, if you're playing the ship right, you're taking damage, you're doing damage, but you're using up those repair parties. By the end of a match in a battleship, you're there, mostly full health, haven't used a repair party. You were probably way too past in the battle and could have helped your team out a little more, bringing your hit points to bear. If you die before you have a chance to use all those repair parties up, well, you've probably messed up the other way and gotten too aggressive. This one's worked out well. War Daddy, started out the game just kind of weaving back and forth in the mid-range. Ships focusing him down, doing damage, but he always had the time to recoup it. Another big hit on the Langley there. Torpedo finishing him off. Now, War Daddy didn't manage to get the 6th kill, but he cracked the 200k mark in an excellent game, still picking up 5 kills, Kraken Unleashed, Confederate Dev Strike, Fireproof Dreadnought, High Caliber, 645,000 credits, almost 15,000 experience, and really just kind of sailed around a flank on his own a lot of the map. His team was behind him. They were doing damage, but he was a big focus. And watching through this a couple times, it was really the enemy CV that seemed to be taking out a lot of the allies behind him. The CV, for some reason, leaving him alone. And he did manage to actually shoot down a fair number of planes. The Bogue, the only one with a similar quantity. And I've never had that fortune when I've sailed the Julioooo. I always seem to get focused down pretty quick by enemy CVs. I think a lot of players know how dangerous this ship can be. It's like being in a Nikolai at tier 4, really any of the battleships that are rather strong at the low tiers. CVs go for you. You're bigger, you're slower, you're hard to maneuver. They can get drops on you, and removing you really does change the game. End of the day, took home just shy of 600,000 credits. Good chunk of experience and a great game. Thank you, War Daddy, very much for sending this in. I'm glad you did mention it in stream, and anybody who has just fun games, send them in. I will try to get them out there. I have a huge backlog of videos now that I've been recording. I've been doing a better job of making sure I record every video before the patches happen. Some of them just haven't made it out because I'm trying to diversify the videos that go up, so it's not just a month of destroyers. Now, maybe I should do that, but I think people would get sick of seeing the same few ships over and over again. Anyways, if you enjoyed this, please consider giving it a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. And as always, I am Qckslvrslash. I'll have another one for you all later.